Socrates, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She is the author of The Girl from Pompey, Discovering the Key to Happiness and Fulfillment. No other than Miss Bryony Bass. Yes, welcome to Book 101, Miss Bryony, and can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm very happy to be here. My name's Bryony and I live in the UK and I've published 3 books that shine a light on mental health and addiction recovery.
Sounds interesting, Miss Bryony. Is your pen name or your real name?
Bryony Best is my pen name.
Okay, sounds amazing. What is you realize that you are good in writing?
I've always written poetry when I was a child, and it's not about me. I didn't realise I was good at writing. I was actually meditating, so I'm very much into well-being, and I was meditating. I had this inspiration, and I just knew that I had to share my experiences and story with the world to help others. And my hunch or my inspiration was definitely correct because my first book has been absolutely fantastic. The reviews have been phenomenal, and the book's actually being used in mental health in the UK and America at the moment.
Wow,
Thank
congratulations.
you.
Who influenced you in your writing?
In my writing, so when I was my first book, I don't feel like I had any influences. So I was just writing my story. I knew I had to share it with the world. But as for influencing me with my writing for my other books, I have to say an author named Billy Jade Kermack, who's an indie author from London, and a author called Marissa Spillians. She actually inspired me to add past and present tenses to my third book, which is a thriller book.
Wow. So if you describe them, can you tell about their writing?
So my in my first book, the writing is in first person. So a lot of the reviews say they felt like they were having a conversation with an old friend rather than reading a book about someone else. And I did draw on experiences from my own life to write that particular book. So I feel like the writing at times can be very erratic. It's trying to reflect certain times of my life when I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. So there's certain parts of chapters which can reflect that in the writing, but it doesn't take away from the story. It just adds a layer to it. The um, the story itself is very honest and very raw. It's not for the light-hearted. I don't hold any information back, sharing stuff that doesn't paint me as an angel, but the true, deepest, darkest thoughts that we sometimes have, and some of our deepest, darkest secrets that we'd rather keep to ourselves. With my second book, which is The Girl from Pompey Conversations with the Dead, that's actually a paranormal memoir. So that book talks about growing up and living with sensitivity to spirit and being a spiritualist. That book is, I think, more processed. I thought about that one more before I actually wrote that book. So I planned it out and how I wanted people to feel in the book. Where the first one, I just knew I had a short story to share with others. But the second one, I really thought about how is the reader experiencing these chapters. And by the third book, my writing really has evolved, and I used past and present tenses and more dialect and different characters and different points of view. And that book is a thriller with a very shocking ending. But all the books are based on my life.
Sounds interesting. Who are the people supported you in writing this book?
Supporting me, I have a very strong following of readers that are really enjoying the books, and they support me greatly because I've actually launched my own clothing and merchandise line. So I sell hoodies and towels and mugs that are all the girl from Pompey, because Pompey is actually for Portsmouth, which is where I live. And Portsmouth is a very densely populated city, and we're very proud of where we live as well. So they've been supporting me greatly, and so has quite a few close friends and a few family members. So they've been supporting me greatly on my writing journey. I've actually been invited next week to a breakfast banquet with the Lord Mayor.
Wow. Congratulations again. So,
Thank you.
The Girl from Pompey, what behind the title of your book?
The reason I called it The Girl from Pompey is because I am the girl from Pompey. I think a lot of my experiences encompass maybe not the best parts of Portsmouth, if I'm honest, but I think they do encompass it. And being such a densely populated city, there's not very many books that are written about Portsmouth. I mean, there are, but they're usually about tourism in Portsmouth or architecture of Portsmouth or history of Portsmouth. There's not really many books about actual experiences that are up to date in Portsmouth. I mean, you think of Charles Dickens, they're not actually about Portsmouth. So I decided to put Portsmouth or Pompey in the title, which only someone who's from Portsmouth would really know it's called Pompey, or if you're local. So that's why I went from The Girl from Pompey. And also a bit of a marketing ploy, really. Every time you type in that title, you'll get all my books come up. And the subtitle, Discovering the Key to Happiness and Fulfillment, that is because in a nutshell, that's what's in the book. There's 10 years of real research data for happiness and fulfillment. And who in life doesn't want to be happier? No one wants to be sad. No one wants to be miserable. No one wants to be in pain. So I thought, well, I've shared 10 years of research data for people, so let them know that actually this book can be thought-provoking and life-changing, which is what the reviews say, is that after reading the book, people have stopped drinking, or after reading the book, people have actually started their own business because it's inspired them to go towards their life goals.
Definitely, very well said. The Girl from Pompey, how did you crafted it?
I literally just started typing. I had no idea about writing a book or publishing a book or what it entails. I do now. But at the time, I had no clue. I literally just started typing. I just started naming the chapters, typing away, and I just needed to get that information out of me. It was literally flying through my fingertips and into the laptop. And I didn't really think about even publishing the book, if I'm honest. And then a few months later, I did contact. I thought, oh, I wonder if I could publish this book. And I contacted a publisher, and they were interested. And they asked me to send them X amount of chapters. But unfortunately, in my personal life, my brother that I live with, Brand, he was diagnosed with cancer and become very poorly. So I had to put the book on hold. And I actually left that book with only one chapter left to write for nearly 11 years. And then 11 years later, I almost suddenly thought, oh, let's finish that chapter and see if we can publish this book. And I did. And the book done so well. I never thought for 1 minute that my book was going to do so fantastic. There's stories been about me in all the newspapers. I've been invited into schools to teach early intervention for addiction and mental health, which I've done. I didn't know it was going to have such a big impact on readers and that it was going to do so well, but it did. So yeah, quite interesting, really. So I almost learned on the job. I had no clue about publishers or the publishing process or legal stuff to do with it, but I do now, which is good.
What a journey. If you go back and you want to revise the book, which part of the book you want to revise?
If I wanted someone to revise a part of the book, I suppose if they wanted to be cheeky, they could just read the end bit that has all of the answers to the research data, couldn't they? But the truth is, I couldn't pick out one part of that first book. All of it all comes together to paint that bigger picture. There's no one particular chapter that's the most impacting, or there's not one particular chapter that actually has been the most popular. The overall impression from all of the different chapters rolled in together is what gives you that overall picture of a journey of a human being in pain, a human being who's had childhood trauma, who's made some bad choices, become a drug addict and an alcoholic, and who has fought her demons, come back, and then has decided to look for happiness and fulfillment. So to fulfill dreams and to reach goals. So I couldn't pick out one section, I'm afraid.
Definitely. The Girl from Pompey, what are your struggles in writing it?
I think it was probably for the first book, it was definitely recalling some of the information. Obviously, when you're a drug addict and an alcoholic, you get to a point where your brain stops almost recording. which is why people start to get blackouts. And towards the end, my blackouts would last for 5 days. So recalling information that's very fragmented in what was a very broken mind, I suppose that was pretty hard for me. But also the emotional pain of going through it all, to write all that information and to bare your soul onto the pages. You have to almost relive most of it. And I think that was the emotional journey or the hardest part for me.
Very well said, Ms. Bess. So, do you think right now you are 100% sober, or you still have the longing to, to taste a little bit?
I like the way you put that, to taste a little bit. Well, there is no little bit with me. It's all or nothing. I do not touch alcohol at all now, and I don't take drugs either. And I haven't done for a very, very, very long time. And do I sometimes wish I could drink alcohol? Um, that's a good question. I think sometimes I do miss the option to drink alcohol, not to be an alcoholic and drink all day, every day, and to escape reality, but for that social let loose moment. At the end of a week when you've had a hard week at work and you decide that you're going to go out and have a few drinks to let loose a little bit. I don't have that option. So I think I miss it then sometimes, or the social aspect of drinking with friends. I can be around alcohol, but it is quite hard for me still. So I don't really, I've lost a certain group of friends. I don't really go out and do certain things. So sometimes I wish I could have a drink, but that mental and that physical addiction is gone now. So physically, I'm not addicted to it, and mentally or emotionally, I do not need it as a crutch to survive reality. So I don't long for it in that way, just in what I would class as a normal way.
Congratulations, then.
Thank you.
What point of your life that you turn 90 degrees to change totally?
That's an interesting question, because someone who's got a drink or a drug problem, they will never truly quit until they're ready. You can try and try and try, but if they don't want to actually give up, you've got no chance. They're fighting inner battles and physical, mental battles to try and kick a habit or stop drinking the alcohol. And it's a very, very hard thing to do. You have to want to do it yourself, not other people. So for me, I think it goes back to 2005 when my sister, I have very many siblings, and my sister Vicky was pregnant with her fourth child at the time. And she was taken into hospital, and the doctors told us that she was probably going to die. They didn't think she was going to make it. And they didn't think the baby was going to make it either. And out of all of my siblings, she decided that if she died, she wanted me to take care of her other children, the one who had a drug problem and an alcohol problem. So that made me think I should really clear up my act. If my sister's about to die, I'm going to have to look after her children. But that's not the whole reason I went into rehab and had that change. It was because I am someone who does like to be in control. So even though I was a drug addict and an alcoholic, I was still what was classed as functioning. So I still went to work. I had multiple jobs. I still got up every day and carried on as normal. And unfortunately for me, I started blacking out for 5 days at a time. And I knew some very scary people. So to not know where I'd been for 5 days or who I'd spoken to or what I'd done was literally life-threatening for me. I could have been shot, I could have been stabbed, anything could have happened, and I wouldn't be in control. So that added to me wanting to go and make a change. And my body started getting to the point where it really was struggling. I was told at the age of 16 to stop drinking alcohol by the doctors because I'd done so much damage in organs that weren't fully produced. And then I had stomach ulcers. I would vomit blood. There would be blood in stools, and my speech would start coming out backwards with certain words, which is common with alcohol addiction. So all of this led on to, didn't matter how much I could handle my alcohol and still go to work and function, my body was starting to let me down. So that's when in 2005, I went and got assessed at Kingsway House and was booked into Nelson Clinic. And then I kicked all the drink and drugs for a good few weeks. And then unfortunately, my father died. And I used that as an excuse and went back on the drink again. And then the truth is, because if I can't be honest with people, how is anyone going to be honest with me or themselves, etc.? the journey from rehab to me becoming completely sober is a very, very long journey. As an alcoholic, I cut down my drink. I stopped drinking in the mornings. I stopped taking drugs during the week. I started taking just prescription Valium drugs. I then started drinking 4 or 5 bottles of wine in the evening, because to an alcoholic, wine is not really alcohol. Not to someone who drinks 6, 7 bottles of whiskey a day, it's not. Then I started drinking just on the weekend, and I managed to reduce and start getting help with therapy and meditation to fix the real problems of why I was drinking. Because people that do drinking drugs, they don't do it just because they want to. They either do it for escapism or they do it to self-medicate themselves. And that's what I was doing. So I had to fix the underlying problem, which is what I started working on with well-being and meditation. And I haven't had any drink or drugs now for many years, but it took years and years and years before I got to that point. It was all about reduce, reduce, reduce.
Well, very well said, Miss Beth. So, what lead you to become an addict to as addicted to alcohol or drugs?
Or drugs. Well, I do have a bit of an addictive personality, but that's not the reason I started taking them. I had a bit of a traumatic childhood, and I was taken out of school to go to work at a very young age. My family was quite poor. My dad was an alcoholic as well, not that it's really hereditary. And by the age of 13, I was working full time and having to pay rent and bills and worrying about becoming homeless. And I would drink the alcohol to try and stop my brain from worrying. So, drinking alcohol at the age of 13 to stop my brain from worrying. And that drinking just got more and more and more. I worked in hospitality where it was very acceptable back then. And by the time I was 16, I was 100% addicted to alcohol. And then you start enjoying the escapism, the fact that the alcohol is making you not worry so much, be upset as much about things that have happened. And then you just go on to the next thing. And that's what happened with me. So I went on to drugs, and then it was drink and drugs. And that was my life for a very long time.
And thank you for sharing your story because it will become inspirational to others.
Yes.
And according to your readers, interesting read as L. Werner saying that being from the US, it was interesting to read about her experience in the UK. Alcoholism and addiction are a worldwide problem.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So, do you think what is the number one solution in to prevent having addicted to alcohol or drugs?
The number one thing, oh gosh, that is a very big question. I think maybe not the biggest, because everyone's different. Everyone drinks for different reasons. So you can't say what the biggest thing would be to stop it. But I think by offering early intervention to children when they're at secondary school, to look out for the signs and what can happen if you become an alcoholic or a drug addict, and looking out for mental health, because there's a massive link between mental health and drink and drug addiction. And it doesn't have to be that someone is literally to the point where they can't function because of their mental health. It could just be, at the moment you're hearing about children that have anxiety and depression. In the 80s, we did not have children with anxiety and depression. You do these days. And therefore, there is a massive link between mental health, no matter how, I don't want to use the wrong word here, but no matter how functioning they still are with their mental health, there is a big link to them then drinking or taking drugs. And it could be for a variety of reasons. So I think by having that early intervention for the children of that age group, that is where you can actually educate them on where they can get help for the mental health and the signs to look out for, and the signs and the effects of the drink and drugs, which is what I've actually done at some local schools here, in the UK. Is I was invited into schools to talk about mental health and drink and drug, and I think that's where they need to be getting that information. No, if you said to a normal 16-year-old, or average 16-year-old, sorry, where would you go if you thought your friend had this particular problem? They probably couldn't name any of the services that are for free in their area. But if they were educated on it, then maybe there could be early interventions for this type of problem. So sorry I couldn't answer what I think the number one way to actually cure or help this, because there's so many answers. But one of the big thing is early intervention.
Yes, so according to LJ, so many quotable sentences. The author has direct and realistic point of views, and she places those views well into the story, providing with lots of quotable lines. So, can you provide us one of your best quotable lines in the book?
One of my best quotable lines. Oh gosh, that's you put me on the spot there.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry.
I think it would probably be, it's a powerful man to be in control of others. It's a more powerful man to be in control of himself. Because it really puts the emphasis on how important it is to take personal responsibility for yourself, your life, and your own actions. And I'm a true believer and advocate for we make our own destiny and we affect everything around us. Bad things can happen to anyone, but how you respond to them and how you react to them will definitely affect the outcome. So I think that's a nice quote. It's not one of my own quotes, because there's actually some of my own quotes within the book as well. And I've just started adding quotes to my new book too. And quite a few people said they really enjoyed the quotes because they just make you think, and that's the point of them, isn't it? To really get you thinking. Bit of a philosophy throughout the book as well.
Yes, definitely. So before we go on, Miss Bess, I want to shout out to the people listening in the United States, most especially in the state of Florida. I have a lot of places in Florida. They have Hollywood. I got 27%. Thank you so much. Boynton Beach, 25%. Sarasota, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Haines City, Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, Spring Hill, Homestead, Pompano Beach, Kissimmee, Riverview, Tallahassee. I think Tallahassee is the capital. Clearwater, Brandon, Naples, Wellington, Palmeco, Santa Rosa Beach, Ponte Vedra Beach, Immokalee, Oviedo, Inglewood, Lutz, Land O'Lakes, West Palm Beach Garden, Cedar Key, St. Augustine, Hale, Palm Bay, Palm City Center, Crowderville, Valrico, Bronton, Miami Beach, Fort Mayor, Sabotel Beach, Raskin, Panama City, St. Petersburg, Los Angeles Grove, Paris, Lakeland, Deltona, Mount Dora, Stewart, Palm Harbor, Sulphur Spring, Alcoa, Winter Park, Newberry, Lady Lake, Trenton, and last but not the least, Ocala. Thank you so much, Florida, for supporting this podcast, because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world, like Miss Byron Bass. So, Miss Byron, what is the best highlight of The Girl from Pompey, discovering the key to happiness and fulfillment?
The best highlight. Oh gosh, you're asking me a question now. You're trying to get me to highlight one section. I suppose the best highlight of the book is the fact it is thought provoking. It really gets the reader engaged with different elements of your life that affect your own happiness, and gets you thinking about your own path, your own purpose, and your own past trauma. Everyone's got a past, everyone's got things that maybe that keeps them awake at night. And I think the book throughout really highlights that. So I think that would be the element that I would highlight, is the fact the book is thought provoking.
Definitely. And I read a book that titled A Million Little Pieces, James Frey. Actually, this is a memoir, but they are marketed as semi fictional novel. It's all about addiction and everything, how we cope up addiction. And I think your book is you experience it and you
Yeah.
tell to the world. What is your inspiring word for those people out there that is still struggling for alcohol and drugs?
If there's anyone listening who is still struggling, I would honestly say to you that you can change. You can change your life and you can take control. You only have to want to. And if you feel alone, you're not. There's many people out there who have felt lost and like they're in a dark hole that they can't get out of. But if you read my book, you'll see that even with my troubles and strifes and struggles, I managed to get out of it. And I was in a hole so deep, it felt like no light could get in.
Yes, definitely. And according to one of your Amazon customers, not an easy read, but a powerful and worthwhile one. Definitely,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's saying that Phoenix or enlightenment, a necessary atonement. Do you think what is the enlightenment of the book?
The enlightenment part of the book is probably my spirituality. So I am a spiritualist, but I don't push it in people's face throughout the book. But it does offer a nice angle, I suppose, or a refreshing undercurrent that's in the book is always about spirituality. And whether you are a spiritualist or a Christian or a Muslim, whichever faith you may have, it is still a faith. And you have to remember that we are a being at the core. So we are all individual beings. And that is something that is themed throughout the book. And I think that spirituality is why it was so thought provoking, uplifting. And as they said, it was a book that's worthwhile reading.
Yes. So, do you consider your book as a memoir or your biography?
It's a memoir because I've done 3 books so far, so I class them as segments of memoirs. They are actually done as fiction, and the reason being is for legal reasons. As I mentioned before, I give over all my information in life, and some of it is not nice. And for legal reasons, I've done the book as fiction.
Yes. And according to Happy Reader, reviewed in the United Kingdom, July 25, 2022, life is tough when you are finding yourself. The Girl from Pompey is a great and gritty read. Tale takes you along aspect of Byron's life, her thoughts, feelings, and action as she navigates the daily grind of the pursuit to understand happiness and fulfillment. Well, very well said. How gritty it is. The yearbook, Miss. It's a gritty read.
Oh, gritty read. Yes, it is. That's because I share some of my deepest, darkest thoughts, and I have had what we call a colourful life. So I've not always been an angel. I have done a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have. And the book is gritty because it is so honest. The information I put in the book is so honest, it's awkward at times for the reader to digest. A bit like when you're watching a film and you have that awkward moment that as you're watching it, you feel awkward. And I did not hold back any of that information. And I think that's why they call it gritty. And the reason I put it in there, all the truth and all the thoughts and the feelings that people usually hide and bury deep down inside, is because we're all beings, we're all humans, none of us are perfect. So I wanted to normalize talking about alcoholism. I wanted to normalize talking about drugs and addiction. I wanted to normalize talking about mental health. It's not a taboo subject anymore. So I wanted people to realize that there's a human here that is brave enough to admit all of her deepest, darkest secrets and all of the side of her that is still growing and wasn't the best human she could be. For them to go, yeah, they have felt that way at times. That, yeah, they have maybe done some actions they're not proud of. I wanted to normalize it. No one is perfect. And I think that's why they call it gritty, because I've put so much honest information in there that most people do not tell their friends or family.
Yes, so The Girl from Pompey is your big achievement.
I would say so. I would say the fact that my books are out there helping people, and there's people that are reading my books and contacting me to tell me that they've changed their life and they feel different after reading my books. If I helped even one person, I would be happy. But I've got multiple people contacting me saying that their life is different now and my book has helped them change their life for the better. So that's definitely the achievement. That's everyone's achievement in life, is to want to be happy and to want to help others. That's the the best way, I feel.
So do you think The Girl from Pompeii is good for a series or good for a movie?
Oh, definitely. I would love Netflix or someone to pick it up for a series. It would definitely be a number one show on TV to watch. I think wouldn't be able to encompass all of The Girl from Pompey in a film very easily, not without losing something by taking it down. But I think a series would definitely be popular. It's got some hot
Definitely.
topics. Yes,
Yes,
definitely.
alcohol, drugs, and mental health is nowadays is rampant. So The Girl from Pompeii, if you have the second option of the title of your book, which one?
If I was to call it something different,
Yes.
a different title rather than The Girl from Pompey. Oh gosh. The other title I did have, because I did have a different title actually, which was Carnelian. Have you heard of Carnelian?
Oh no, can you enlighten
No?
us? Who is
Of course.
Carnel?
Carnelian is a crystal, and the crystal has many meanings. Obviously, I am a person of well-being and holistic therapist as well. And part of the meaning of carnelian crystal is to take action. And that is something that I definitely did by taking my own life back, by getting off the drink and drugs. So the second title would have been Carnelian. The reason I did not choose that title was because not many people would know what Carnelian was unless they were in the type of job that comes into contact with crystals, or whether they was a faith of a spiritualist or a faith that uses crystals. So therefore I thought it would put people off if they didn't quite understand the title.
Yes, very well said. We are calling out there. People want to make this a series or a motion picture, make this story well known to the world, to make inspired to other people,
Yes.
to make them believe that, oh, it's about time to change and be part of this society as a sober.
Yes.
Can you please invite our listeners to buy all your books?
Oh, that would be absolutely lovely. So, my first book is classed as a practical self help book and memoir, an entertaining book. My second book, which is The Girl from Pompey Conversations with the Dead, is a paranormal memoir because it is a prequel that talks about my childhood growing up and what led to me becoming a drink and drug addict, and also my journey being sensitive to the spirit world. My third book, which is a thriller memoir, which still all of them shine a light on mental health and addiction recovery, is a book that's slap bang in the middle of my first two books on a timeline. And it has different points of view, different timelines. It has much dialect in there, and it's a fantastic thriller. I wanted to write a book that was a thriller that did not have a predictable ending. And I wanted to have a big twist at the end, because I think with many thrillers, the the ending can be easily guessed. So
Yes.
this one is not. And the reviews on that book, which is pretty new, it only came out 2 months ago, has been that people have read the book from start to finish and they couldn't put it down, and they absolutely loved it. They've said it's beautifully written and they could not guess the ending, which is really good, because that's what I was hoping for. I wanted that shock and I wanted that all. So all the books are very entertaining, page turners. All of them are thought provoking, and all of them will get you thinking about your own life whilst highlighting some really important, meaningful subjects in life. So if you like thrillers, pick up the third book. If you like paranormal or spiritualism, pick up the second book. And if you like books that are entertaining and are also ones that are going to be really deep and thought provoking, then pick up the first book first. The truth is, you can read them in any order, but they were actually published. All three books were published in the last 18 months.
Miss Best, thank you for your time.
You are more than welcome. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me.
Thank you for your life that people when inspired and changed totally.
Wonderful. That's all I can ask for.
Modicon people, see you soon.